Hello, everyone. Welcome to this exploration of Coyote, Symbolism. This is based on years of research on how we can be inspired by them as an animal living, thriving, adapting to such a changeful situation with human encroachment. It's going to cover a lot of research notes and behavior as well, and some Native American mythology. Not the stories themselves, more of an integration of the themes presented in those stories. All right, let's dive in. So Coyote was often a trickster or shapeshifter in Native American lore. There were stories where Coyote would at first do something that appeared to be purely mischievous, and maybe it was sometimes, but in the end, it had beneficial outcomes for people. So just to give a little example, imagine that Coyote sneaks into a tribe and steals something, magical ceremonial item that belongs to the medicine person or shaman. And this item just really helps them in their ceremonies. So at first, the people are really upset at Coyote. But then later, a rival tribe comes to steal that very same magical item, having heard about its power and wanting to use the item for their own ceremonies. But of course, Coyote got there first. So they can't find it and they just leave empty-handed. Then later, again, the medicine person ends up finding the ceremonial item in the woods, just discarded next to Coyote's den. So they're able to retrieve it back to their tribe. So in the end, if Coyote had never done the bad deed and stolen it, it would have been even worse because the rival tribe would have got it. It could be a lot more complex than that, of course, but it's just an example of the ambiguity in Coyote symbolism. They kind of keep us on our toes about what's going to happen. All right, so the next thing I wanted to talk about it's interesting how self-centered motivations can turn out to have positive results for everyone. And you know how in modern society, we're kind of conditioned to live our lives for individual needs and desires. But in a spiritual journey, ultimately you kind of strive to turn your passions and desires into something that's also going to be mutually beneficial for others and the collective. So it feels like Coyote would advise just continuing to do things that we enjoy and that we love to do without necessarily trying too hard to make it be beneficial for others right away, and just cultivating that trust that on the long term it will serve the collective, and maybe it's already serving in a way that we don't even realize. And then to bring it back to the trickster's schemes, in the Coyote stories, the victims of the trickster schemes usually learn really valuable lessons. And this is reminiscent of, we all experience situations where we got manipulated, we got fooled, and or lied to. And of course that feels awful and it hurts. But there's so much potential for learning from it. So as long as we're able to acknowledge what happened and integrate it, we become so much better at detecting manipulations, lies, or schemes, and we end up being better protected for the future. So in the end, you can even end up being grateful for that initial trick or manipulation from the past because it carried that great teaching. You kind of have to be careful and watch your back though when, with Coyote medicine. It reminds us that having trickster tendencies can attract others. So all the more reason to work on that protection. There was also this thing that was interesting. Like, it can be helpful to remember when people are trying to manipulate and lie to us, they might also be lying to themselves on the inside. So the deceiver can be harder to detect if they have convinced themselves that they have good intentions. So again, the stronger our instinct and intuition, the more protected we will be, even against those. Something else that's also important, it feels important with Coyote, is letting go of blame. So forgiving ourselves for things we might have done in the past that we regret. Because again, we don't know what's going to happen in the future. We don't know in what ways these events from the past were really great teachers in disguise. And Coyote's bark sometimes sounds like laughter. So there's that connection with the inner child archetype. So yeah, feeling blame and feeling guilty, it can become a stagnant energy. It can make us feel really stuck. So with Coyote, we definitely have that energy of releasing blame. And I really like this sort of little mantra, forgive but don't forget, which can be used for others who have hurt us, but also ourselves, the things we might have done that we're not so proud of. So forgiving, but not forgetting. That's how you integrate and grow from it. Coyote medicine can also be very helpful for if we're disappointed that something didn't happen, or we're impatient because we really want something, but it's taking so long. It feels like it's taking so long to get there. So again, we don't know what's going to happen. And there could be something really unexpected waiting for us, and we just have to kind of see the bigger picture and remind ourselves that maybe when that thing does happen or doesn't happen but makes space for something else, then it's going to make sense later why we had to wait so long or why it had to happen in such a sequence of events. All right, so this is a little bit of a different topic, but it's really interesting when you study coyote as an animal um, existing with humans. There have been a lot of extermination campaigns actually in the past, historically, because of farmers. They just wanted to get rid of coyotes so they wouldn't kill their chicken or other animals on the farm. But there's something really special about coyote where when more of them would be killed, then the next litter of pups, there would just be more pups. So more coyotes would be born to kind of compensate for the ones who were lost. And this is just really powerful symbolically because there's something about a collective consciousness and this sort of intuition. Like we don't know if the female coyote is aware, like, that she's giving birth to more pups because other coyotes died. But regardless of that, it's still the same outcome of regenerating the population and making sure they're going to be okay. So it kind of ties back in with having trust that we're connected to not only others of our own species, but we can take it further than that and remember that we're interconnected with the whole ecosystem. And there's some things that are happening through us for the well-being of the whole, whether or not we're aware of it meta consciously. The next thing is a little bit connected again to that bark sounding like laughter and inner child. But they're very playful creatures. And so if we find ourselves feeling a little bit stuck or too serious or even depressed or anxious, Coyote can definitely help us feel more joy. They really invite us to venture out of our comfort zones, to shake ourselves more awake, feel more alive. And yeah, maybe even getting a little bit silly, releasing that stagnant energy. And also an invitation to find more authenticity because, again, we might have been conditioned by society to behave in certain ways. And maybe that authenticity that's repressed inside of us because it didn't feel safe, working with Coyote would really be a beautiful opportunity to uncover that, to bring it out. This can be very vulnerable, like bringing out more authenticity, allowing it to shine through. It can feel very vulnerable. So with Coyote, there would also be an element of the importance of discernment, like in which situations and with which people or beings to feel safe to let go and behave in more silly ways, behave in more authentic, vulnerable ways, get out of our comfort zones. All of these things, we can have the discernment to know the when and the where. So kind of being selective with that. So this is kind of nonlinear, but to bring it back again to the trickster archetype, very often the tricksters that we need to be the most careful with are the ones that come from within ourselves. So we might have created our own blockages and our own stories about who we are and what's possible. And these can be these kind of background voices. They could be unconscious or shadow conscious. And we might not even understand why we feel so blocked. But they're illusions and tricksters that it's definitely possible to overcome and transmute them. And Coyote can definitely help with that. They can inspire us. They can help us with having the intelligence to also go deeper, because there's always deeper layers of these things. It's not like you have one moment where you overcome your inner tricksters. It's going to come in layers. And with Coyote, you can really bring an energy of even playfulness and curiosity, and staying kind of careful at the same time. And there's a really great opportunity to reclaim a lot of energetic space inside ourselves and grow into confidence and trust. And it's so in the same way that having blockages and tricksters and illusions preventing us from living the life that we want, that's going to attract energies that are going to perpetuate that cycle, and we can get stuck. But in the same way, if we start to have that spaciousness, that confidence, and that trust, that's going to attract the energies that and the situations that make us feel even more confident and trusting, and we can travel into more and more into that life that feels more aligned, that feels much better. So yeah, kind of being able to let go of these inner tricksters and illusions, to remember that we do have the power to create our own reality, and that what we radiate energetically matters a lot. And maybe as we come closer to the end here, it wouldn't feel complete without mentioning their song. You know, of course, the wolves howling, it's deeply evocative. But Coyote also has quite a powerful howl, and it's very it's almost like eerie sounding sometimes. It it often happens at night, and when there's many coyotes howling together and singing together, it's actually quite a special song to hear. And this feels a lot like it's evocative of the call of the wild. Like just connecting more with that changeful, chaotic, whimsical, unpredictable energy, and maybe even like magical energy within nature itself. And the sort of dance of the darkness and the light, the embracing of that and everything in between. So Coyote would also be bringing an energy of empowerment to reclaim our own darkness, our own shadows, and dance and sing with it, creating something beautiful from it. And, it's a lot more difficult to trick someone who's already deeply familiar with their own shadows. So this is empowering, and it's protecting us in many ways, many different ways. All right, so the last thing would be that, since Coyote has been so adaptable, they've been able to thrive both in the wilderness or in the vicinity of humans. We can learn a lot from them, because for many people, it feels like I certainly feel this way, and I know I'm not alone in this. Like it's become kind of difficult to adapt to our own species, like what's happening with humanity in the world. And when we look at animals like coyote, they're similar to fox in that way. Actually, especially red foxes, they're also very adaptable, and they exist all over the place. With animals like that, they can really inspire us to find our flow, even in a challenging, changeful, sometimes scary world. And this idea of finding our flow, it's interesting how most people in modern society would describe feeling like they're in a state of flow for a very small percentage of the time. We kind of associate it with athletes winning a high stakes competition, or artists creating a masterpiece, for example. They're in a state of flow. But what if, like, maybe Coyote is inviting us here to ask ourselves, like, what if we could be in a state of flow a lot more often than that? What if the flow state doesn't have to be just like these occasional peak moments? Maybe it could be found a lot more often in our day-to-day life. And that's part of the reason why I love studying and connecting with non-human animals so much, is that they are in a state of flow. They are in the present unfolding a lot more than we are in our modern societies. So I just find that really inspiring. So whatever we're doing, even if it doesn't quite feel like it's our life mission or something really intense like that, doesn't mean that we can't be in a state of flow, even in the little moments. So maybe that doesn't need to be such an alien concept of being in flow on the day to day. It can be cultivated, like a form of training, which leads up to our dreams and desires to unfold much more organically. Well, that's it for now. Thank you for listening to this deep dive into Coyote symbolism. And I hope to share space with you again soon.